coming to the, I guess, the conclusion of the series of the mentoring series. What I want to do here is just to do a little bit of a recap and just break it down. Give you the, I guess, Coles Notes version. I know we went into some details within the other videos, and please remember that included in your session is an actual 1 hour session with me. It could be over the phone or in person, where we can discuss some more things if you have any questions, and you do have access through email as well. So as we were covering over the emails, the sessions, I had a student ask me this question: how can I see? And the only way that you can see is to actually wake up. So when you, I guess, get to a point where you know that you're asleep, and then the next question is how did I become asleep, right? So, meaning, I'm not talking sleep as in sleeping in your bed. Sleep as in not understanding the environment that you're in and having more of a knowing of where the influences are coming in. So the triad, or the three areas that we covered over within the series here, is basically when we're looking at the mind, okay, and then you've got the body, and then you've got the spirit. I'm going to put the spirit over here. Okay, so these three areas, on some level, have basically been hijacked. So what happens in the environment is that there's a lot of things that are vying for your attention. They're looking for you to pay attention to a lot of things that are trying to, I guess, distort you or distract you. Okay, so the mind part of it, what you want to start to do is basically that's why we concentrate on meditation, is that the meditation part of it is going to, I guess, let you see where you're being pulled. So the thought patterns that are coming in, especially with things that you're addicted to, could be anything to do with food, work, alcohol, sex, drugs. All of those things are trying to get you to do this, to go forward, right? Everything that's external is trying to get your attention within your thought patterns to say, why don't you try this out, why don't you try that out? So it's all this exploration, right? So you can't really get anything wrong. It's just that you have to be able to catch it in the act to see that where it's trying to grab you and keep you in that cycle. So the cycle keeps spinning. In order for you to, very similar, I gave you that example, is that everybody has these new iPhones now, and everybody's like this, right? So the smartphone itself is really not a smartphone. It's actually dumbing us down to show us that we are all interconnected, but we're all doing this type of, where we're looking at constantly, social media and all this jazz. Like I said, I got 4 kids. And I created a new app. It's a new social media app, and it's called Outside. That's the new social media. Go outside instead of being like this, right? So my point is that the mind itself will start to it's almost like snake you around, and a lot of times when you wake up to a lot of this information, when you start to, I guess, take little pieces from it, because a lot of things that I'm saying to you may not resonate, right? And I can tell you, there's a lot of things back in 2000, 2005 where I was like, there's no way that's happening, that doesn't really make any sense, and I would just leave it. I wouldn't just spend too much time on it, but then it just keeps coming in, and it keeps repeating, and it's just trying to get your attention, right? So you do have, in these 3 quadrants, you do have a positive and negative frequency that is trying to help and assist you to maintain balance. Okay, so it comes down to balance. Balancing the mind, balancing the body in order for it to operate or function properly. And a lot of people, especially with all this Wi-Fi and cell phones and stuff like that, so the body itself is being bombarded with EMF frequencies. Okay, so you can research this, go on Google. There's a lot of stuff on geopathic stress. It's even with ley lines and that type of thing. The energetic environment is bombarding the body in order to throw it off balance. So when you start to calibrate the balance within these 3 quadrants, and I can tell you this, I'm always trying to check in with myself and say, okay, where I'm off balance. And if you start, there's a great therapy out there called Body Talk, and if you start to meditate and just even asking these questions to yourself, where do I feel off balance? And you may get a thought pattern that'll pop up. You may get something within your body that'll speak to you. You may feel something like move or twitch with it. You could be in your tummy and that type of thing. So the mind itself is the meditation piece, is where you want to be able to sit still, okay, and to be able to observe the thought patterns that are starting to dock. Okay, so the energy frequencies are docking within this part of your with this part of your field, because the mind itself, as you're operating, that's the control factor, right? You're controlling the avatar within the game board, so the mind itself is going to be taken off course. So when you start to meditate and focus and start to see, basically when you start to look without your physical eyes, you now start to see more with your, I guess, astral eye, your third eye. The next step you want to start to do is start to look at the body itself. The EMF stuff, you know, I've given some suggestions with shielding it, using some EMF pendants. You can use tourmaline. Shungite is great for that. When you start to clear the vehicle, clearing the body, clearing the mind, right? So you're clearing the space around the mind, which is meditation. You could be your environment, okay? So you want to clear your environment, wherever there's toxicity in the environment. Could be even people that are around you, you know, that are constantly pulling from you, or they're you know, they're texting you, or they're calling you, and and every time you talk to them, you're just getting bombarded with all of their drama, and all these thought forms just keep to resonate, reflecting within your field. So then these are basically attachments or cords, and that's why I get into the cord cutting stuff and so on. So the mind itself, you can do some energetic clearing on that, right? I had a client that was 25 years an alcoholic, and he came to me and was laying on the table, and I just tuned into him, and I could just, this is before he even said that he was out, and I just tuned into him, and I could hear his body talking, wanting to drink, and he was actually in remission, and he was going to AA and so on, but every cell in his body was speaking to him, and he couldn't get the mind chatter away, and we started to look at ways to help and assist him and so on. The mind itself, with the toxicity within it, usually corresponds within the body. So when you start to clear the body, which is the you know, doing a detox or a cleanse, okay, which one is the same. When you detox or cleanse the body and start to watch what you're putting into the body, so this is more of an alkaline diet, right, or a vegan diet. Okay, so you want to be more alkaline. In order for the frequencies, because there's frequencies within the mind. There's frequency. Remember we talked about the beta frequency, right? And then you get into the theta. Okay, and the body itself also is holding a frequency. And then we started to talk about grounding. Okay, so you're going to, if you're doing some meditations, the best place to meditate would be outside, taking your shoes off. Connecting with nature, that's when it's bringing you back to the shamanic resonance, which will actually bring you back to 7.83 hertz. So the EMF frequencies usually push you up past that, which your body starts to become agitated, off balance, right? Okay, so starting to detox and cleanse the vehicle, you'll start to feel lighter. You'll actually start to feel, everybody has different sensations, but you'll feel lighter. You're not going to feel as dense or heavy, right? So doing the detox, okay, meditate, watching what's going on in your environment. You want to do more stuff in nature, okay, in a natural setting, more natural, right, instead of this synthetic environment that we're creating for ourselves with cell phones, computers, you know, in a cubicle in an office, the fluorescent lights, everything is suppressing the frequency, basically trying to turn it off. And when you get into nature, or even when you're ingesting, you know, Himalayan salt or different types of supplements, okay, so you can start to supplement the things that you're missing, right? So the supplements we're just going to enhance this. It's not the only thing that's going to, you know, it's not like a light switch. It's not going to, this is a natural origin. Just think of, since you've been a kid to who you are today, depending on what age you are, how much toxicity that's actually been bombarding the body-mind meat suit. You know, we're eating dead food. That's a dead frequency if you're eating meat, right? That's why we suggest the vegan frequency, right? If you're drinking tap water, then you're probably getting a lot of contaminants and that type of thing, so that's polluted water. And then when you go outside, there's a lot of stuff in the environment, you know, with the cars and the carbons and the stuff that's coming out through the within the air. You're breathing a lot of polluted air. So a lot of things in the environment are basically trying to place it more into that negative space to turn the body down so that you can't see. see. And that's when you start to wake up to that and you start to clear these things one at a time. Baby steps. It's not going to happen overnight. Okay, so you don't want to do too much too fast because you don't want to place yourself into a healing crisis. You want to maybe just pick one and maybe just tune in, meditate, and say, okay, what do I need to see today about the next step? And then you'll start to feel, okay, maybe I want to start to do a detox. When you start to do the detox, then you're going to start to, a lot of times people get severe headaches. And I know that was with me at certain points. I know if I'm starting to get headaches that there's something off or off balance within my environment. And it could be too much sitting in front of a computer, doing stuff on my phone, that type of thing. I'm not saying you got to get rid of everything, but when you start to release some of this stuff. That's why a lot of these high-level monks and these guys just took off away from the cities and just ran up into the mountains. Now, I'm not saying you got to do that, but you can start to create the space, okay, in order for your spirit to start to, I guess, spark, okay? So let's just say that there's a spark that is looking for your attention, okay? So a lot of people will see this spark, especially when they close their eyes. And their third eye is very active. You're going to see this spark or this spin, okay, or this light flickering, okay. So the spirit itself. Now we had also talked about within connection, okay. So we've got the mind, okay. When we start to turn it down or to be able to focus, because the layering process, if you want to think of it as circles of layers of energy frequencies, okay, that are basically just being layered over top to suppress this frequency. Now, when you start to do some high-level meditations, when you ask, what do I need to see today? And then you start to travel, which is, shamanic journey and that type of thing. We talked about the ladder, going through those different portals and so on. So when you start to do the actual gates, or when you're jumping through different layers within the space that when you start to meditate, you're going to come across some of those characters, right? So some of those characters are vying for, and they're looking for your attention. You make, depending on your upbringing, you may pull into, some shamans, you may get into some Indian characters, archetypes, different archetypes, angels, ETs, these types of beings that'll show themselves, right? So I can tell you this, even coming across a light being that's shining a lot of light. I've done a lot of this stuff with the astral journeying, and some of the light beings are not very positive. And I remember coming back into the body and seeing this light being beside my bed, and it was right beside my body, and it was whispering all these negative thought patterns. So that really woke me up to say, okay, look, there's something going on here. There's a positive and negative frequency that is looking for mind share, okay? And then you're going to catch it in the act. So everything on the dimension is trying to pull away for you to get distracted. This place is full about wants, needs, and desires and distractions, right? So your spirit is always pinging out the signal to basically wake up. Okay? And it's just a slow incremental process, and that's why I talk to a lot of my students and I say this is a deconstructive process. It's not about regurgitating information, it's not about the law of attraction, it's not about reading books, it's not about listening to me, it's all an inside job. You have to do this stuff. And I've said this in other episodes, you have to approach this like a spiritual athlete. Now, the results are going to vary, okay? So this template is just basically a pointer, okay? So even when you look at athletes that are training today, every athlete performs differently based on what they actually started to do within their training. So let's just even take athletes that prepare for the Olympics. They've got 4 years to actually prepare for that, and every athlete, depending on what they're doing, will perform differently on those days of those events based on what they've done within their regiment. So if you're putting a lot of things within your body that are very dense, if your body is very acidic, then you're going to be on different levels of that ladder, because the frequency has to match. You're not going to match a frequency that is different than you, because it actually has to be part of the body. That's why the body is such a key component, because it's the hardest one. And I'm still dealing with a lot of this stuff too, is that it's the hardest one to control, because a lot of things in the environment, especially with eating, is appetite and being able to perform properly. So when you start to, catch the body in the act, you're going to see that when you start to ascend through these different layers, and you can call them chakra points, you can call, I don't like to label them that system, because I believe that system is a little bit distorted as well. So when you're waking up away from this fragmentation. if you notice, even if you look at a chakra system, okay, so let's just say the chakra system, if we're just looking at the first 7, okay, there's other ones, there's way more than 7, but if we're looking just at the, remember I was talking about the middle plane, lower plane, and the upper planes, okay, so every plane has you within a chakra body within those different planes. So we've got the middle plane here, okay, so we've got the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, okay, so when you start to clear the vehicle, depending on what you've been addicted to, so if you're still drinking a lot of alcohol, if you're dealing with drug addictions, mental depression, that type of thing, it may just keep you anchored into that fight or flight or first base chakra. So that first base energy vortex, right? So you may not even get past this part of the ladder because you still got work to do. Okay, and everybody's got their own stuff to do. And I can tell you sometimes, even though if I push past this and I haven't cleared this completely because I've squeaked out some way, I'll come back to it. There'd be weeks where I'm like, man, I gotta still do some work there because I still got some residual energy there that needs my attention. And basically journaling helps with that. You start to journal and get some of your information that way. So when you start to wake up to the actual space, this system, if you look at it, if you want to look at a chakra system, to me, and this is just a concept, it looks separated, doesn't it? Right? So we've got 1, 2, there's all this 1, 2, 1 to 0, right? Okay, so 1 to 10. It's a closed loop. So even if you are focusing on, oh, I got to clear this, I got to align this, I got to, all these different types of techniques. Okay, so that's why I always like to make it very simple. That's why I've only got 3 here to say, look, if you want to concentrate on the mind, you meditate. If you want to really push into another area, you do it outside in nature. Okay? If you're doing it inside, you may get different results, right? So you just play around with that. When you start to look at the body, okay, the body itself is what you're perceiving, okay? There's an energy that's perceiving through this vehicle, okay? So when you start to clear this and you want to start to do work with other people, you are now going to perceive, and that's what happens with me in a session with clients, is that I can perceive different frequencies on people based on where they're at. And I'll either get the color red, or I'll get thought patterns that I'm picking up off of them, or I'll just get the intuitive guidance from their higher self to say, look, you need to talk to them about the heart space. The heart is a very, I guess, suppressed frequency, because this is where most of the energy, that's the high heart, your spirit energies is just pushing out this way. So a lot of it's been overlaid. So when you're looking at the mind, there's a lot of things based on when you were a kid, which has to do with control factors such as religious components and that type of thing. Could even be family issues, could be relationship issues. So a lot of that is focused on the mind. So you can do some clearing techniques, cord cutting techniques, body talk, that type of thing. And then you get into the body stuff, which is cleansing and clearing. And the biggest component within the body, okay, if you don't want to do anything and you just want to test this, focus on the water. The water is the key. Okay? So 75% to 80% our body is of water. And this is scientifically proven now with Dr. Emoto's work, is that water is the most highly programmable substance in nature that you can actually change the frequency just based on thought patterns. So you can even label it, and this is what Dr. Emoto was doing, where he was actually labeling different canisters or different vials of water, and he would put love or positive energies on the actual beaker or whatever he was using, and then the opposite side of that he was doing hate, fear, and the negative side. And then he would freeze those droplets of water, and then he would look at them under a microscope, and the ones that had the love and the positivity and the higher vibration were beautiful pictures of snowflakes, and the ones that had the negative energies around it were all distorted. So that right there is a simple example of what I'm pointing you to here, is that the environment is vying for this positive and negative frequency. It's either a love or a fear frequency, and I'm not saying that you have to be on either pole. In fact, what I try and is that it's not all about love and light and all this stuff where we're doing this and just meditating with angels and being in that space. That's not what it's about. because it's just basically, you know, trying to get happy, and we're pushing away pain. And what I try and help and assist people, what I resonate more with now is that basically those two will be there all the time. You have to just catch them in the act and be in that space, which is 0 point, or the cusp. And you see a lot of esoteric teachings with different ascended masters, if you want to call them, that sit in that cusp, which they're basically balancing. Okay, so that's the balance. That's why I always use that Vesica Pisces. Okay, so the Vesica Pisces, which is basically those two circles, that's geometry. Okay, so we're starting to get into some more advanced stuff here, but the geometry, this symbol is actually, if I kept going with this, then you start to get into the flower of life. Okay, and then you start to get into different sacred geometry images, and this pattern is actually shown in nature. And then you get into the Fibonacci sequence, and you get into different frequencies. So we're not going to get too much into that because this is a beginner's course. So when you start to see the basic two energies, okay, so we're just going to stay with two for now, okay, are vying for the attention. So you got the positive and negative frequency, and what you want to start to do is just meditate. You can even meditate on the Vesica Pisces and basically just visualize yourself in the center of that and say, what do I need to see to stay in that space? And that just could be as simple as an intention. Everything is an intention, right? So every time you intend, when you're meditating, you intend, what do I need to see? You're commanding the frequency, or you're commanding this virtual reality system that we're in order for you to clear the vehicle, in order for you to wake up. So another simple, I guess, practice, if you want to collapse these, okay, because everybody says, well, I got to work on this chakra, this base, that base, and you collapse them into oneness, which is basically just visualizing a circle. And you can visualize that circle even with a dot, okay, and you can place that dot over top of your third eye and just basically say, okay, I'm a sovereign being, I am free, and every fragmentation that is out there, this is part of a meditation technique, every fragmentation out there, I draw back to me. And then that'll start to be more of a mantra on a daily basis. I am whole, I am one, I am whole, I am sovereign. Waking up to see, you have to really know, or inner know, how you got that way in the first place. And scientifically, I think I've talked about this in other videos, is that basically even when we're decoding light, right now we're only seeing 10% of this light spectrum. So 90% has been hidden from you. So how do you get to see the other 90%? And you can either feel it. There's different ways that intuitives will feel, taste, touch, and then you might get the imagery, like we talked about with some of the videos where the actual movie starts to play. So when you start to decode the other 90%, you also have to sit back and ask the other question: is who's turning it off? So that takes you really more down the rabbit hole, and that's not what this series is about, but that's another talk where you start to go, okay, well, if these other energies that are around us, and I don't like to play too much on the negative side, is that these energies are very real, and you need to know who else is playing on the game board, and that's why they're overshadowing, or they're trying to bring too much of this code, or this, it's almost like a program, within the body, mind, meat. So you're watching TV, you're listening to music, you're maybe in a toxic relationship where there's constant bombardment of a verbal type of an abuse, or a physical trauma has happened as a kid. So a lot of these are programs, right? So these programs will kick off at different stages in your life, and then they'll actually start to keep you in that fog or that haze, or have your head down so that you can't wake up or stand up and be able to see or feel, right? It's all about a feeling frequency, right? That's why a lot of people get into the depression stuff, and then they get onto the medication and so on. That medication actually starts to numb you down, and just basically so you're not pushing off both of these two poles in order for that internal dialogue to shut down. And that's why a lot of these medications talk about when you're coming off of them, and I don't advocate being on something or off something. I'm just giving you some examples that happen with me within different relationships I've been in, and noticing some of these things. And basically when you start to wean off some of these medications, the thought patterns start to come back, but now they're amplified, and there's a lot of suicidal thoughts, which is basically going from that positive frequency right down. So it's almost like an elastic, right? So then you come out, and so you got to wean yourself off in order for you to stay balanced. Okay? So how do you do that naturally? And these are the 3 steps, okay, that you start to look at or focus on. And if you're a beginner at this, I would suggest you just focus more on the body itself. And if you're not really into the detoxing or changing your diet, just focus on the water. Just start to drink distilled waters. If you start to look at some of the videos online, there's a lot of vegans that talk about distilled water. I started meditating on it because I was getting a little bit of different information on filtered water, bottled water, all this other jazz. And I just started to test it for myself. And I'm still on the distilled water. And basically you got to remineralize that, and that gets back into the supplements, right? So the supplement regimen, which is, you can do some Himalayan salt, sea salt. There's Shilajit, which has a lot of different trace minerals in it that'll help in order to remineralize the water for you as well. Get yourself an EMF pendant. That'll protect you from the frequencies that are bombarding within the environment. Now, when you just think of it this way, when you think, when you're listening to a song, okay, that frequency is being pushed out by the radio station. So that radio station is putting that, you can't see it. So the frequency's out there, but you can tune into it, right? So what else is tuning into it? Even though that you've got an external device that is picking it up, same thing with a Wi-Fi, and even when you pick your Wi-Fi, you can pick the neighbor in front of you, the guy behind you, the guy next to you, so that frequency is constantly bombarding, because the auric field, your energy field, especially if you're in an environment that is suppressed, such as an office environment, will actually contract. It'll start to come inward. But there's been scientific evidence shown that when they start to look at the auric field itself, when it goes into nature, it starts to look like a toroid. And this is more of a 2D representation, which is Vesica Pisces. When the toroid, almost like if you look at an apple and you're just spinning it in this way, so the energy starts to go more expansive outwards, because now it's starting to become one, because it's interacting with nature, which is you. So the frequencies within nature are going to wake you up faster, so going for walks outside, going for runs, being around animals. Dogs, are very healing. Horses, a lot of healing frequency coming off horses. So just to recap here, the frequencies that we're interacting with, and you start to do this with a client, you may pull into one of these three categories. I can tell you, when I do, 15, 20 people in a room, and every reading is different, and everybody's on a different layer of this, and I can tell immediately when the spirit is really awake, because the energy frequency, even in the room, I can feel it, because their body's entering, my body's clear, I'm already set up for the session and so on, and when they come in, I can feel this frequency very, very strongly, because I go from here all the way to where they're at. And that's where I start to give the information that's needed, or whatever needs to come through. And you can really tell the difference when you interact with somebody like that. And that's how, when you look at Buddha, Gandhi, Mother Teresa, the frequency would shift in the room. They would feel different, even being around that person. I know with friends of mine that are healers and stuff like that, a lot of people want to just be around them and touch them. And they don't like to be touched because they want the frequency. They want to be awake. They gravitate. That's why a lot of people that are gravitating to this actual information, or this video series, are feelers. And you may have already started to do sessions without even realizing it. When you're sitting with your friends or your family members, they just come to you because they're drawn to you, because you don't have any judgment or attachment to the experience, and you're at this cusp of trying to become more sovereign and whole, right? So it's you're more in this we frequency, okay? So that's just to make it more simple. And when you're down here, it's more about the me frequency, okay? So you'll toggle back and forth. You're always catching yourself in the act. It's all about a learning curve, right? So when you're sitting with your family members, clients, they'll know. I've had people say different things when they enter the room. They'll even see flashes of light. They'll see, they'll feel different things. Some people just even come in and start crying because they're emotionally at a certain space, and when they connect with me, they just start to release, because that's basically what I'm all about, is to help them to move into this space of oneness and wholeness. And because they've been too bombarded by a lot of the environment that has been a toxic environment, that they feel that there's something off and they need direction. And then when they push that signal out, because it's a thought pattern, so then the guides that are helping and assisting them, their higher self, says, you need to go sit there, and then we're going to wipe that slate clean for the moment. Now, it's not an automatic light switch, and I say this to clients all the time. It's not an event. Sometimes it can be, but it's more of a process. So even doing this type of stuff, right? This is not going to happen overnight. Now, if you're very, I guess, done most of your work already, it may just start to click immediately. And I've had students say to me, everything you're saying I already knew, and you really connected a lot of the dots for me, and that's all I needed. And some people need to just have their hand held, and that's why I provide the session at the end of the training as well, is that I can help and assist you to connect those dots and to just give you more clarity on where to start. And this is basically the template of where you want to start in order for you to see and to feel. It really comes down to feeling, right? And not feeling lost. A lot of people, when they're not into this aspect of oneness, and you're hanging out over here, right? Okay, or you're hanging out down here. Yeah, you can feel lost. You can feel alone. You can feel suppressed or depressed, because a lot of this frequency down here in the first chart is fight or flight or survival energy. It's me against you. In order for me to win, you have to lose, right? That's how this place is set up. That's why you're looking at baseball games, hockey games. It's all aggression. Okay, we're gonna win. You're gonna lose, right? It's a fight, right? And people are getting tired of this fight, and it's all coming back now. Everything is starting to, remember or remembering, right? So the fragments are starting to come back into the pie. The pie is starting to become whole, and a lot of things within the frequencies that are coming through. And I think I've talked about this in other sessions. You may want to research that. That's the X-wave frequency, which is a gamma wave that's been starting to hit the planet. You can actually see on the Google map where they're showing they can't understand what this frequency is. And I think they've been tracking it since 1987, and it's starting to be more amplified, even past the 2012 stuff into where we're at now. So back to the 3 here, we're going to go away with meditation. Okay, so we start to meditate. You don't have to do it for 3 hours, you do it for 2 minutes. Okay, if you can't sit for 2 minutes, then you got to loosen up your schedule because 2 minutes is not a lot of time, and basically all you're doing with that 2 minutes, 2 minutes becomes 5 minutes, 5 minutes becomes 10. I'll sit in a meditation, and like I said before, I'm out for 3 hours, I come back and it feels like half an hour. So it's all basically how much weight are you lifting, right? And if you're a beginner, you may just want to sit for those 10 minutes, okay? Start to clear your environment, declutter, get rid of things, start to move the frequency within you. Stop hoarding stuff. A lot of shamans and high-level masters actually don't have a lot of things, okay? A lot of things, even books and CDs and everybody's keeping. It's all this hoarding, right? Holding the frequency. This is almost like that depression stuff, right? Where you don't have enough, right? So when you start to know that you're always going to be provided for, and you're always going to be protected, and you're exactly where you need to be at every moment. Okay, and every day you get a reset. So every time you're resetting your day, so you're commanding, that's what the meditation is about. That's the intention. So you intend your day. You start to plan your day. You start to become, a lot of people are becoming very complacent, right? It's just this wheel. I get up, go to work, get up, go to work. It's just this wheel, and that's what people are starting to see, that it's just not working anymore. So clearing the environment. And if you want to be more in a natural environment, you're going to see the spirit start to come out faster and quicker. Okay, the body itself, focus on the water if you're a beginner. An EMF pendant, tourmaline, shungite, those crystals will also help and assist, even if you have problems sleeping and that type of thing, where you're getting bombarded with a lot of frequencies or thought patterns because you can't meditate. When you start to clear the body, the detoxing, the cleansing, a lot of that stuff is still stuck in the gut, right? Like if you're a very heavy meat eater, if you've started to look at, there's a lot of documentaries on Food Inc. and that type of thing. Still stuff that you were eating as a kid is probably still lodged within the larger intestines and so on. So you want to try and get rid of that. Do a colonic or that type of thing. The vegan diet is more of an alkaline diet. Okay, I'm not saying you can start to wean yourself off the lower frequencies. It's dead meat, it's dead frequency. That's why when you're putting something in your body, you're looking for a charge. Now then, I talked about this, where you even start to, if you want to do another piece, which is sun gazing, where you just look at the sun for, you could do 10 seconds, 30 seconds, and then you start to feel that frequency coming through your body, and then you're going to start to see a difference, and then it's going to start to clear the mind, right? Because it's a pure frequency coming in, right? There's even a meditation video out there online about the sound of the sun and the healing benefits of just listening to the actual hum. NASA actually recorded the sound of the sun. And I've had some different experiences just meditating to that actual audio. So we've got the vegan diet, grounding your frequency. A lot of people that are healers, more of the higher frequencies, they don't want to be here, right? They just they know that there's something up. They just can't be in this density. A lot of young kids, a lot of teenagers understand that there's too much of this. Sorry, my throat's getting a little messed up here from talking. So a lot of the bottom frequency is bombarding the healers out there. So the healers and the ones that can see and the ones that gravitate to this information, their energy's being turned off. And I can tell you, even from my own experiences from a kid, I was suppressed with a lot of negative energies growing up and so on. And when I started to wake up and I started to see the patterns, everybody's pattern is different, but I can tell you, a lot of those things that happened were basically my greatest gifts, to see that I needed to go into a different direction, that actual direction that I was going towards wasn't beneficial for me. So don't always take the negative as this lower aspect. It actually most of the time it's something that needs to take place. And then the supplement regimen for the body, you can supplement some of the water stuff, and then you're getting into different supplements that will wake you up as well. You know, you can do Ethereum Gold, you get into some Ormus material, different colloidals, silver colloidal. You can even get shungite colloidal if you go online. And I would test it, right? And a lot of this stuff is not FDA approved, so everything that I'm giving you here is just recommendations. I'm not a doctor, so don't take these things as the be-all, end-all. So there's a disclaimer there as well on the website. And then the spirit part is just focusing. There really isn't a technique that you have to do to focus on your spirit other than feel. And you're feeling yourself. Now, when you start to feel yourself, okay, I can tell you this, your spirit becomes alive in moments that you breach your comfort zone. Okay? Now, let's just take this for an example. If you talk to people that have jumped out of a perfectly good airplane and done some of those parachute things, the adrenaline rush that they get, they feel so alive, and you know, a lot of it has to do with the adrenaline and so on, but they feel so alive because their spirit has come in really, really strong at that moment because of the actual experience. Okay, there's a great video. I think it's still online, but I remember sitting and going to a conference one time with Sonia Choquette. She's a great teacher. She's got a lot of books out there. I would recommend a lot of her readings. One of them was an example of what she did was, how do you know if your spirit is in your body? And she had an auditorium of people. There's about a couple of 500 people in the auditorium. She was teaching the class and so on. And she pointed to one person, and this person was in her teens. And so she brought the teenager up, placed her on the stage, and on the same stage she brought up somebody more in her 40s, placed her beside her, and then she put on some music to dance to. But she wanted them to actually dance looking at the audience. Okay, so when they were dancing, the actual body movements weren't very fluid. They were just going through the motions, right? Because actually the one that was more older, the more in her 40s, was not really in the movement. And the one that was more of a teenager was a little bit more lively. Now, what she had asked for is basically turn around and shut your eyes. That's why a lot of people, when they meditate, they shut their eyes so that they don't have this external interpretation or feed that's coming in from the external eyes, right? So when they turned around, even the one that was older started to dance, and you can see at that exact same moment when that spirit dropped right in, and it didn't care. And there's actually a meme out there, dance like nobody's watching, right? So when you start to not care about the environment of who's dictating to you or who's telling you what to do and that type of thing. I'm not saying you got, you quit your job and don't listen to your boss and that type of thing. What I'm saying is that when you start to feel that you're being a little bit more suppressed within your experience, it could be stuff to do with your relationships, it could be stuff to do with your work environment, friends, that type of thing, and you start to always care about what they're thinking, and you're caring about who's saying what. And that's why a lot of this social media stuff, they've even done some tests with kids and so on that do have suicidal thoughts based on what they're seeing their friends doing and that type of thing, and what they're saying and bullying and all that jazz. So when you start to know internally who you are, and this is the 3 questions that I place in my book when I wrote that book for my kids, basically, who are you, okay? So your spirit having a physical experience, okay? And your spirit's not always in the body, because the body's always running on automatic pilot. You don't have to think to have your blood pump, your heart move, your lungs go in and out. A lot of this stuff is done automatically. Even when they did the test, the frontal lobe, that 10% is what you have access to. The other 90% is all automatic pilot. So when you start to bring your spirit more into your body, you'll feel it, because you'll start to vibrate. Like I can tell you when I'm really in the zone and I've done some, detoxes, I've done some high-level meditations, I'm amped. I'm just so amped up that I got to go outside, I got to ground, and I got to make sure that my frequency, that's what I'm doing. I'm grounding my spirit into my body, okay? And even when I do some sessions with people on the table and so on, I can tell where the frequency stops, because they're more out of the body, and a lot of healers and people that are high vibrational energies, they don't want to be in this density, and that's why a lot of kids that are born today, or even the millenniums, they don't want to be in cubicle environments. Even if you look at the Google model, everything's more of an open office type of environment. If you start to go into different corporations and stuff, and I did a lot of this in my my corporate life, because I would go into these different places and see how the places were set up, and I didn't notice it at the time, but a lot of things are changing so that you're not just sitting in this narrow band, right? So a lot of it has to be more expansive. So this is an expansive energy. This energy, your spirit, feeds in nature. It doesn't feed in a closed type of an environment, especially if you got the fluorescent lights going. I can't do any types of sessions with lights on, because I just feel I need to be more open and out. So everybody has a different way of interpreting the frequency. And like I said before, I gave you that analogy of the Olympic athlete. Okay, so the Olympic athlete, depending on what they've done over the 4 years, is going to perform differently. And I've only done most of this stuff, and I'm giving you the tools to this based on what's worked for me. And I hope these, I guess, tricks and tips within the session, that you enjoyed what you were to receive. And it was my pleasure teaching you. And please keep in contact. There's going to be more videos added to the series, so check back. I'm also going to be keeping the email list, so when I do add more stuff, because I'm always expanding, I'm not fully awake, I can tell you that, because if I was, I wouldn't be here. So when I'm getting more of my information, I will be placing that as a video. You get a link to that, and then this will be an ongoing thing. But I do appreciate the opportunity, and please make sure that you schedule the time with me. Since you did purchase this, it'll be included as well. And keep in touch.